Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to IBC 2012, day 3.
Day 3. It's almost over. You never count the last day.
And it's the last demo of the day of day 3.
Last day of the demo of day 3. I can't say that.
Yeah.
No.
And we're going to see in the last demo the Flame Premium 20th Anniversary Edition. Creative grading and visual effects.
You lost it.
We've got really long titles this year.
It is, isn't it? Anyway, right.
So
it's going to be a bit mellow, a bit more relaxed.
Let's have fun with it, Stuart.
I think so.
So Stuart Holloway from the London office.
Afternoon. Hello.
Colorist extraordinaire. Compositor extraordinaire.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You're bigging me up here, I can tell.
We have some cool material from our friends at
CinePost. CinePost. Oscar nominated for Best Foreign Language Film.
That's right.
Yes.
So beautiful material to look at, and we're going to see some grading.
See some grading. Obviously, going to look at a bit of Flame Premium to start off with.
The new Flame Premium, so the 20th Anniversary Edition, so a lot of new changes, some changes to the UI as well as the workflow.
So this one's going to be more workflow, more sort of grading aspect. Joe's done a nice job on the flashbang wallop. Big light rays, looks lovely.
Yeah.
Anyway. So here we go. So obviously, if you've seen Flame before, this is all going to be fairly familiar. If it's not, this is all going to be new. But we have a desktop here. We have some reels, and we've tidied some things up. However, the main big changes is when we start looking at things like our timeline, our desktop, and our workspace. So, as you've said, a total sort of rewrite the way that the actual machine works, the architecture, all kind of completely new. We're going to look at a little bit of dealing with media, a bit of conforming, and then how we would pass that off to our sister product for some grading, as it were. Okay. So first thing, a little bit of an overview of what the In Darkness is. So we're just going to load up our desktop reels here. And we've got a little bit of a card here. So this kind of puts in perspective what the film was about. So once again, it's a film set in war-torn Poland about a sewer worker who engages with some Jews that have been hunted by the occupying forces, and he basically tries to hide them underneath the sewers of this city in Poland. Now he's doing it originally for cash, but obviously during the story the dynamic kind of changes and he gets people attached and relationships. So it's very nice. Now Sebastian had quite a big challenge. This was all shot on red. So all the underground scenes had to be quite well lit. So obviously to recreate that kind of claustrophobic feel, a lot of grading, a lot of sort of like very subdued hues, taking everything right down, and also in contrast to everything that's happening above ground. So so really nice, and a nice kind of way how colour can sort of emphasise, tell a story within that. The usual thing with great colour grade. And as you know, Sebastian's a great guy. Oh, yeah. CinePost, brilliant, done some really nice work. So, without further ado, how do we sort of go around working with this media? So, the first thing on this is that obviously working with features, you want to sort of conform some things, get some stuff in, work with that. And the really nice thing about Flame and the Flame grading is the way that you can kind of start doing your editing here, your compositing, move that to another area, do some grading at the same time, then move that grading back in here, continue the editing, kind of maintaining the links and metadata, that sort of thing. And it is actually a unique workflow when you kind of look around at the other systems that are around. Right. So what we want to do here is we actually want to start, we've got some sources up here, and once again all the editing has been sort of completely rehashed. Just look at really how we work with the conforms. Coming into here, this is all completely new, and if we're going to start doing any kind of long form project, obviously the pain point is getting the media in and really sort of kind of assembled. So we've got this new window that allows us to do this really kind of quick. Got a little bookmark here that's taking us to an area where in fact we have a conform. That was lucky really, wasn't it? And we're going to bring this into the system. Now this is our new view, and this is really good. We've been looking at this actually a lot upstairs in the privates, up on the balcony. And this is a really nice way of representing how you deal with your timeline and your media. Now, what this is actually doing, Flame's giving me a preview of the construction of this timeline, very simple single layer. And it's also saying, right, at the moment, everything in red is kind of missing and I don't know where things are. Now, you can do this in multiple ways. Obviously, you could tell it as you drag the EDL in where the media is. It would link it automatically. But you may have missing media. You may not have all the media at the time. So this just gives you the flexibility to really conform or reconform whenever you want. Okay? So we've got to tell it where this media is. Now we could set an external search directory out in the network, out in the storage, but also we can actually say, well, actually we've already brought some of that footage in. So it's really easy inside of Flame really to sort of say, use this as a location that I want you to look for. And this is really where they spent a lot of time working out how this should present itself to the user. So it gives you a hint about what it's successfully matched, what it hasn't. Now in this particular case, down to my search criteria, we really need to change a few things. So you can see that here we have basically multiple ways of doing things. We can base it on tape name, frame rate. We can come in here, we can base it on source time code. And you see as I go through and adjust those criteria, we get some nice green ticks coming up. We get some areas where it's still not sure on. But the thing is, it's giving me visual feedback about what's working, what's not. When I see a lot of these green ticks, we can go through and we can link those sources, and I don't have to really worry about those anymore. So we can go through, we can just hide that, and that just leaves those elements that, you know, maybe there's something else wrong. And here you can see that it doesn't really understand the matching of the tape name to what I've picked. So once again, we can come around, we can sort of pick some file names, we can take out some source time codes, we can sort of take that out, and then once again we can start getting matches. We can kind of troubleshoot what's not quite right.
Right.
Okay. Now once your conform is done, and once again we've got one here that obviously we kind of did a little bit earlier, we need to sort of kind of hand that off. So we're just going to close that one down for a second. Now, a couple of things that are going to happen here. This was all shot red, but it was shot in a log color space for one thing. So obviously when we're looking at this raw, it's presenting itself in this kind of washed out view. Now that's not really much good if you're going to try and edit or do some compositing. You want to kind of see it in a video space or delivery space. So brand new on this version of Flame, and also in the grading side as well, is we've got the implementation of the ACES color transformation engine. Now for any of you who don't know, this is basically a color science that allows you to take pretty much any format, any color space, and transform it into one unified ACES color space. It's like an Academy standard. This is just a very wide gamut color space, which allows you then to work in one unified space and then deliver multiples out of that. So it is a color transform that you can deliver to DCI or video or back to something else. Now just as an example of this, we're going to use our effects tools here. We're just going to go and put a batch effect on this for a second, and then we're just going to take this down to once again video, so we're kind of seeing it in its raw state. And if we use a LUT editor for a second and just drop that in the pipeline, so once again this is a really kind of nice way of working procedurally. Inside there we've got ways of converting color spaces, but new into this is the color transform tab. So we can actually load up pre-made ones, which is probably the way a lot of people would work. Or the really cool thing about this is that we can actually then start to build our own color transformation engine. And it's fairly simple. There's a lot of options in here, but basically you tell the engine what the source is, where it's really coming from. So this is actually a log source. What do I want to do? So the only option I really get converting from log is to put it into an ACES color space. So now we're in that big, wide 16-bit linear. And then the last thing is that on my broadcast, we're literally just doing ACES to HD to pop it back. And now I can work in confidence knowing that that's all really good. In this particular case, CinePost had a LUT that was already built for them. So we're going to just quickly pop out of this, and we're just going to remove that BFX, and we're actually on the viewport, we're going to apply what we call a viewport LUT. So come into our viewing settings down here, we're actually going to use this log to Rec 709 light space, and we're actually going to come back here and tell that this is a log source, and you can see now that viewing it through this LUT, everything is kind of fine, right? And this is kind of important when we pass this information back into the grading side, because obviously we support the same viewport LUTs, but we've also got that color transformation engine built right inside of the grading engine as well.
Right.
So to move this across, really simple, and once again this is where this kind of unification of the systems really excels. Everybody does grading, everybody does compositing, editing. This is where it all really comes together, and that is the real main difference when you're kind of looking at your systems. So here we've got a folder called Luster. Now this is going to be our grading app, and we've already dropped this in as a reference, but simply all I would have to do as an operator, pick this up, drop it into a folder. What that's doing is basically saying that this is somewhere for the grading guy to look. So we're not going to push anything to him, we're not going to export, we're not going to copy, but I'm going to be able to look at this structure when I go into grading.
Yeah, and you can also pull the timeline over into the grading application, do source grading.
That's
so
right.
You can basically temporarily mute the effects that you're doing and then reapply them when you come back.
If any of these shots had effects on, the grading app would realize it, would tag them.
Right.
And then basically you will be grading. If you return this then into the flame, it would reapply the effects on the new graded shots. So very non-destructive, really quite flexible.
Yeah. So with that, while you're changing over to the grading application within Flame Premium, let's take a look at a graphic which sort of explains the different aspects of Flame Premium application. So of course we have editorial and conform. We saw a bit of that in the beginning of this presentation. So creative editing, conforming EDLs, XMLs, we can do all that. There's also this real-time grading environment. So pick the right tool for the job. You want to make sure you're specifically working with tools that are designed to do color grading very quickly in real time. In this case, we're going to be using the source grading technique, so we can basically mute the effects that we're applying temporarily, do our grade on the original sources, and then reapply them when we go back to visual effects. And then finally, there's also the visual effects portion of Flame Premium, which is also fully capable, has lots of creative tools. That's what Flame is really known for.
Pretty much.
So now we're back in grading, so let's take a look at that.
My God, it's seamless.
Very seamless.
So here we're in our grading interface. We've obviously got nothing really loaded at the moment. So lots of different areas, lots of different places where we can do things. But basically, this is our representation of like our media hub that we had back in Flame. This is kind of representation of our workspace where we organize things. So if we go down to the Flame that we're just on, these are all our systems on the network. And actually, if we go into that particular project and look at the workspace, we can see that same folder structure. Now, all we really have to do here is twirl down this, and you can see that we've got a clip in red, which represents that record timeline. All right. Now, to actually start using this app, all we really have to do is drop it into this library section here. And what you're going to find out when we twirl this down is that it's actually put all of these sources as a reference, because we haven't moved stuff, into here. And the last clip is actually a representation of the timeline. So all these sources reconformed exactly as we basically had it in Flame. Okay, it's exactly the same sort of thing. We can look at this in various ways. Now, if we kind of go down here and we just kind of load this back up straight away, a couple of things I want to kind of draw your attention to. So straight away, we're working off the same log footage, for sure. The next thing, if we look at our timeline, now this is really nice. So we can have a multi-track or a single track or whatever we want to do. We can even use masks that have been generated inside of the Flame directly in here. But the main point is that we have access to that as a timeline again. So we can edit, we can drop new shots in, we can slip things. This may be the last place that this job goes to. So you want to make your final tweaks here. All right. The other thing, once again, is the color. So we're looking at the raw log, but once again, down in our transcode options, we do have the options to apply 1D, 3D, and also the color transform aces. So once again, we can transform this on input, we can transform it on output, exactly the same color engine. As consistency, if you remember, we were actually using this particular LUT. So once again, you can apply that directly inside here in the grading module. And now we're going to do some grading.
Perfect.
Perfect. That was lucky then, wasn't it? So lots of things that we can do, but the main thing about this is you're looking at the real-time performance. So we're kind of playing this through on the fly. We can see, obviously we're playing back, we can come through here and grade on the fly, and I really have to stop doing that. We can also look at this timeline, this thumbnail way of navigating in several different ways. If you kind of look at this, we get a nice story page. So if we have a shot, a scene that's got like 400 shots, we can very quickly access these. We can navigate down to specific points. All right, it's a really nice way of getting around the timeline. What's even better still is that from the colorist perspective, I may not actually want to look at all this in one go. Okay, this is obviously the final playout version. There's a lot of mixed shots, there's a lot of cutting backwards and forwards to different things. And actually, for my first pass through, I want to put some kind of continuity grade on. I want to get things that come from the same shot, the same scene, balanced quickly. Now, I don't want to be chasing up and down the timeline to do that. So we've got a full set of editorial tools inside of Lustre, and we can do our conforming inside here. But most importantly, we've got things that are like sorting modes. So if we come down to here and we sort this timeline, you can see basically what's happened now is that it's come out of the playout version and it's rearranged all these shots solely based on the tape name and the ascending time code, right? Because most things are going to be from the same time code range or tape. Now what's nice about this is that we can do this multiple times. So if we look at this range of shots at the end, all exteriors, we can make a selection and we can sort those again. Now what this has done is it's just presenting me as a colorist with something smaller to look at. Okay, I've got a smaller range of stuff that I need to concentrate on. I know that all these shots need to be balanced. I also know that it's very easy to go back to my final playout version. So just to illustrate that fairly quickly, if we're just looking at basic kind of grading, we've got a stack of layers, if you want, of color that we can apply. In fact, we've got 50 layers per shot. And within these, we can have multiple masks, multiple mattes, and we're going to kind of look at how Sebastian used that to really sort of kind of craft the image. But in essence, it's color. So in this particular case, we're going to be looking at a particular shot, take into account that we may have color differences in here, or maybe we just want to create a particular look. We're just going to put a kind of a grade on this, give it a bit more density, play around with the gamma, come into our mid-tones here, maybe give it that sort of kind of cold look, take out some of this. It's supposed to be outside in winter, a bit of the desaturation. And of course, we're looking before and after in context. Now, that's affected one shot. If I've got lots of shots that have a similar tonal balance, which I need to apply the same look, I want to do it quick, okay? I'm getting paid by the hour. I want to go home.
There's a lot of shots to get through.
A lot of shots to go through. And these guys generally, I mean, when we were doing this, when I was doing this inventory, you expected to grade kind of like a reel in half a day, at least a basic pass-through. So you're looking at like 400 shots in 4 hours.
Right.
You've got to do stuff quick.
Right.
Right? So in this respect, I want to put that same sort of correction over all these and maybe go and tweak them individually. It's really easy in here. Everything is selection-based and literally drag and drop based on the parameters that we have here. And you can see here that very quickly we've literally got that same look across all these things. I just have to literally go through, make smaller shot-to-shot adjustments, and I'm done. I'm out. All right? And that gets through a bulk of your grading very, very quickly. Very simple for me to come back here now, unsort that timeline. You can see all those shots are placed back in the context, and I can do the next take or the next loads of time code, okay?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great tool to temporarily sort and sort of sift down to just a few shots.
What's better still is that if you don't want to do that, maybe you've got selected shots that the guy wants to sort of concentrate on or the client wants to look at out of context for everything else, you can actually do that as a manual selection. So here we're just selecting 2 shots, and we can just manually collapse the entire timeline down to concentrate to those, right? Now, when you start dealing with multiple shots, you want to look at them in context. So we also have these kind of great views. We can come up to multiple views. We can assign different shots to different views. We can have 16 views at a time ganged, so we can grade multiple parts of the timeline in one go. Really useful, and once again, from just a purely day-to-day colorist point of view, gets your job done really quick. So a little bit more sort of granularity on how we're going to kind of work in with these tools. So all of our grading tools are available in any secondary, and you would kind of start off on something like this. Once again, just a very basic balance. We're not going to be reinventing the wheel here. We're just going to play around with this, maybe just take some of the warmth out, and then we're going to use our secondaries to really sort of start to kind of craft how this shot looks. So maybe it's a bit more down here, something like this, okay? So what else do I really need to do to it? Well, if the balance is good, can't I just leave it alone? So the whole point about these tools is to allow you to craft the image, okay? It's like kind of painting with color. So I've got a big expanse of nothing here, really a sort of very flat tone, which really detracts from the action. We can come into a secondary, we can grade in the secondaries, but what's more important on this is that we can start using shapes and keys and combinations to do that in one go. So in this particular case, what I really want to do is draw a very basic geometry. So geometry to you is a mask.
Right.
All right. We're going to put a little bit of softness in this. We're just going to kind of position it in a certain area. When we go back to our grading tools, that is now going to limit where I grade. So the whole point about this is to create an idea of light, tonal range, light and dark. So we've basically just emulated this shaft of light, highlighting where they're coming from. Now, of course, if this was a static shot, that would be great, but this is moving and now the window slides. So we've got to have some way of matching this in or tracking. So what's really nice about this grading interface, we have all our tools up front to use at any time, and we've got multiple trackers. So what I'm going to do here, kind of zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing, is I'm going to start a new tracker and I'm going to put it on a place where I know it's going to track. Doesn't matter, I've got lots of places, and we're just going to analyze that through. Now you see, it will go through in real time, it will track multiple points in real time, it will do shape tracking in real time. we're just generating animation data that we can reuse on something else. And once we've got that keyframe information, we want to attach it to things. Now, as a compositor, tracking can get complicated. There's lots of parameters. This is really easy, all right? And it needs to be, because it needs to be fast. I now want that tracker to drive this shape. What we have to do is assign the tracker, touch on the shape, and now you can see that it's locked on. I can actually go and reposition this or tweak it, whatever I want to do. The tracker still drives it. I don't have to worry about moving or stepping keyframes.
Easy.
Brilliant. I want to take this a step further, and I want to affect the sky region. So Sebastian, very subtle tones. We put kind of a halation behind the church here. It's all about mood. So I actually want to go and do a very similar thing again, but I want to use a combination of this and King. So the first thing I know that I'm going to need to do is I need to garbage mask out a majority of this area, okay? This is going to be affected by the key. We're just going to make a big old garbage mask with a freeform shape, and once again it's a matte. Now, what's really nice about this system, and it is actually quite unusual, is that you can combine a lot of things in one secondary. So all grading systems do windows and power windows, but the power of this is the ability to combine multiple things in one window. So at the moment I have a window that I want to use to protect this. So actually what I need to do is to make it black, all right? The next thing I want to do is I want to actually isolate this a bit more. So I can come in here, I can draw another shape which basically is now going to interact with that mask, but it's actually the wrong way round. I need it to be underneath. So all of this actually has a priority. If I select my round circle geometry, I can actually push it to the back of the stack so it behaves underneath this mask. And from here what I'm going to use is a little bit of softness. Now that's good, but it's not really taking into account the detail of the church. So what's really nice about this is that I can come in and I can now use a diamond keyer to effectively make a selection and combine a key on top of multiple masks. And basically these act as a combination to limit where that key is going. And once again, the diamond key is common to Flame Premium, powerful, really powerful dynamic key to use. You get great results. And from that point, you can come through and once again, you can use your grading tools to add some subtle sort of like tonage into there, you know, just adding a little bit more warmth or a little more cold, just playing around with this. Now the last thing that Sebastian did in this particular shot was that once again isolate. Oh, actually there's one thing I really forgot and you didn't remind me. These will still move.
Yeah, they need to move as well. What am I going to do? Yeah.
Once again, you're familiar with Flame, you're going to be right at home. This is a schematic representation of all of our shapes that we're using inside of here. Now what's good about this is that if we come once again down to our schematic view, looking at this, we can add a new parent axis that's going to control multiple things, multiple shapes. And then when we come out, we can come straight back into our tracker, and once again we can reuse that same tracker to drive multiple elements. Right, so even if I forget, I can just backtrack really quick like that. Good save.
Nice.
The last thing that we did here was he wanted to put some more contrasting colour back into the buildings. So once again, we're going to use our diamond key. We're going to literally just kind of scrum into this area here. So we're just getting a basic key. We're going to add some blur into this. Let's put a bit of shrinkage in there. I won't actually limit that with like a little bit more of a kind of like a garbage mask here. I don't want it to affect too many things outside. And of course, a little bit of softness on this. And then the last thing will be obviously to match it in with the track. Just going to come here straight away, and we're just going to work once again, working our gammas and literally put some warmth in. So the whole thing is, I know that a lot of this is quite subtle, but you can see quickly how that changes the entire focus of the shot. And this is kind of really important in storytelling.
And the mood of it.
And the mood. So we're going to actually load up Sebastian's final grade for this entire timeline, and literally now just kind of step through some of the things that he's done. So obviously this he spent more time on than I have, but the principle is still the same. We're working with multiple shapes, multiple masks. The really beautiful work that he's done is on the scenes that are underground. Now, some of these are going to be a little bit hard to see on the monitor, but the original red footage is this, and he's literally going through using these secondaries to start literally crafting different areas, using tonal maps to really just accent things. And all these shots underground have all received this treatment. So once again, the original, we want to really subdue this down. Everything is lit by torchlight. You're not going to see anything. So when you kind of look at some of these other areas, you can see he's tracked things in to follow and reveal particular people, to highlight them, to bring them out. And he's literally just gone through it. It's literally a masterpiece of grading, like a masterclass on literally picking out small areas, picking out the eyes, if we kind of come here, literally just accenting slight pieces in the eyes, working on the red ribbon, okay? Colour is very, very emotive, just as is sound. And stuff like this you're not even aware of when you view it, but the craft of the colorist, this is what it should be. It should be invisible, all right? So with that, we've actually got the trailer for this particular film. It's called In Darkness, and it features quite a few of the shots that we've been looking at in this. Do try and see the film. Really brilliant. And once again, thanks to Sebastian and CinePost
Absolutely.
For letting us to demo this material.
And congratulations on the nomination for the Academy Award.
Hörst du das? Was? Das Ghetto. Der Kanal ist unser.
So sieht man sich wieder.
Wenn ihr nicht mindestens 500 bringt, dann könnt ihr uns ausliefern.
Hört zu, ich kenne die Kanäle besser als meine eigene Frau. Ich könnte euch einen Ort zeigen.
Wie viel?
500 pro Tag. Aber Sie haben doch Jesus ans Kreuz geschlagen. So steht es in der Bibel.
Die heilige Maria und die Apostel, das waren alles Juden. Genau wie Jesus.
Jesus?
Was ist mit dem Ghetto passiert?
Das Ghetto ist leer. Ich habe nicht versprochen, alle Juden zu retten. Es ist gefährlich mit so vielen Leuten.
Und wie viele von uns sind es wert, gerettet zu werden?
Sagen wir 10.
Wer hat sie denn zum Gott gemacht?
Gibt es da Juden in der Kanalisation?
Nur Leichen. Die haben die Rohre verstopft.
Du würdest es sagen, wenn sich da welche verstecken.
Na klar doch.
Ich kann nicht weitermachen.
Du wirst weitermachen. Weil wenn du nicht lebst, lebe ich auch nicht mehr.